A lot of people ask me, and I deal with this in my foundation. I have a lot of parents and kids about keeping your kids in sports. And it's a big thing. The importance of keeping kids in sports is so that they stay healthy, right? I mean, you have to realize that there are two things. They should be enjoying what they're doing. Everything's at a different level, but there has to be joy. There has to be some reason. We are not in that thing where you can push your kids to do it because it will not end well. If they really do not want to do a certain sport, you got to let them go and hopefully try something else. So the key of what sports gives you, no matter what the sport is, but it gives you a certain discipline. I was just listening. This woman was talking about she's like nominated for 3 Grammys, and she was like a basketball player. And the first thing she said was, all my basketball discipline helped me so much in music. I was like, okay, okay. That's the thing that we give kids is the discipline and getting up and doing it again. For girls, it's extremely important. You know, I have my background in women's sports and a lot of girls in gymnastics, and it's one of those sports where they tend to come out at high rates. But there's so many factors. The biggest factor often comes when they get to be teenagers. So I've got teens in my gym, and I keep telling all of my coaches that is my sweet spot. If I can keep my girls in there 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and they're still wearing a leotard and doing gymnastics, I got them. They're confident. I know when I release them off to the world, they'll be confident about what they do. And so, seriously, the body image, especially for girls, you have to understand what it's about. And if you're not doing sports, you don't really understand what it's about. You're just looking at stuff. You got to learn about what your body can do and really appreciate it, not how it looks. It looks better when you do sports, obviously, but you have to understand what all that strength does and how it lets you do different tricks or how it lets you play basketball or run farther and jump higher, whatever it is, you learn to appreciate the skills, what your body can do, not how it looks. How it looks is a benefit. And so what happens with kids and teens, and especially girls, it's a lot about how you look and it's very social. Now, the social part in girls, I get, I know. My teenagers are talking all the time. I'm like, come on, girls. Must we make drama out of everything? But I do make extra effort. And I really want to tell the parents out there, you have to try different things. They're going to say they're going to stop and they might, but maybe they go with a friend. They do something different. Oftentimes it's social. It's like their friends are at the gym. And it's like, these are my, and that's why they're talking. So they're having like a social thing going on with all their teammates. And that's okay. That is fine. There's all right with that. But I think it's really important. It's like you don't want your kid to drop out of school when they're 13. Well, I don't want you to drop out of sports when you're 13 either. Right? I want you to stay in there to get a full session because the body's going through so much, which is the other thing. All women out there know, ooh, it's a lot of changes. And you've got to be able to master that stuff when your body's going through changes. That's why we're so crazy at that time. That's because your body is doing all this stuff. And so if you're in sports, the other thing it does is that you have something to mark it against, right? It's not just going day to day and your body's making these changes, but you're like, I had a good practice the other day and my body felt like this, or my leg was sore or whatever. So you have something to compare it to. So you're a little bit more conscious of the changes that are happening to you and you're able to go through them. If you're doing sports and you know you have to push through some stuff, you get some cramps, you gotta learn how to push through some stuff sometimes. Let's be clear. You know, it's like all these things that you have to deal with. And I've got some stories up in here about training my athletes through this process. But in the end, you want kids as they're growing and girls and boys. Now, BJ always loved sports. He came, he grew up in sports. So he's all around gymnastics. He liked it. It's so funny. My other son, Casey, I kind of made him get on the gymnastics team. I'm like, you got to do it for 2 years. So you know how to do a back handspring. You do it. He wasn't loving gymnastics. BJ loved gymnastics. Casey became a fencer. But I wanted him to do it because, for one, he can teach gymnastics now. He's around it so much. So make a little money teaching it. But he understands it and he appreciates it. And that's everything why you want kids to do sports so that they learn the rules and learn to appreciate it. They become, sports athletes become really good fans because they understand sports, right? So for boys and girls, because I had a year, it was probably 2 years ago, BJ missed making the national team of the world championships by seriously 0.1 or 0.2. It was like some really small margin. And he was extremely upset because he just didn't do his best. And it was the hardest thing to keep him going through because he had to turn around and go back to practice. And we had long talks about that. And I said, in the end, this is going to be the hard time. You just have to go back to practice and work on the next thing because time is different for young people, right? For me, it's like, oh, it's a year, you'll be that. When you're young, 16, 17, 15, a year is like forever. So, but it took being very patient, but also being consistent to stay back. Boy, if you take a break off, here's the other thing. When you take a big break from things, it's hard to start up again. So it's much better if you're in a regimen or you're in a practice routine or whatever, and you don't have your best meet or you feel you've had something go wrong. You have to do this. This is the other thing you have to prepare for is when you get injured. That's a whole nother thing, right? Coming back from injury. So Zakwe, who was one of our athletes, really messed up his ankle at nationals. I mean, it was a real and seriously, I don't think he was out from the end of June until pretty much the end of September, and he had to get ready for World Championships in November. And so it was a thing. I have to say, USA Gymnastics was extremely helpful. We had a great medical team, but injuries are hard to come back from because you have to stay in shape, you have to stay motivated. Everybody else is training. But here's the thing when you look at things, you've seen athletes get a bad injury and they've been off for like 6 months and they come back and they're super bad. You can do it. But I always tell, even no matter what level you are, because I had a parent now and kid has an injury, and I'm like, why isn't she in the gym? Oh, yeah, what was hurt? It was like her elbow. I'm like, well, yeah, she needs to be conditioning. You got to have a core to do most sports, but especially gymnastics. So it's like, don't just let your body go. Stay in the gym, keep them going, keep them motivated, keep it moving because it's really hard when you really take off. And it's hard physically. So if it's something that's mentally, it's also hard mentally. Like if you're out of the groove, you will feel much better if you're active in doing something. So, and it might need a change of sports. I'm okay with taking breaks, but be really specific and communicate with the coaches. I will have to say that. You guys have to understand, you can't take the coach out of the equation because they're the ones that are really scheduling how your child is developing as an athlete. So you've got to keep that communication open because that's there too. Coaches plan. Mm. And so that three triangle, parent, coach, athlete should be very, very strong. And don't ever lose that because it doesn't work if not every people are on the same page.
How can parents help their child and also help themselves discern whether it might be time for somebody who's very talented moving up the ranks? Is it time for them to really focus in and get to the next level, or would they actually be happier doing multiple sports?
Well, the question about whether a talented child is ready to move up to the next level or do other sports, it's really on the child. You will see it. It's very interesting. And coaches know this too. Because here's the thing, and I've been a coach, and for coaches, there's nothing worse than having a very talented child that doesn't want to work hard. Forget about it. Forget about it because you see all of this potential being wasted. But if you have a kid that just wants to do it, and they may not be as talented, but if they want to work, then we can get stuff going. So it really is the desire that the individuals have. And sometimes you can be talented and not want to do it. Huh? That happens. Let's be clear. And you can't be woe is me or saying this could happen, this or whatever. Who knows what people are going to do later in life? But the reality of it is that if they're not ready to work at that point and want to put in the work, there's nothing else you can do. I know sometimes you think it goes a little bit, but I hear too many stories from athletes that really didn't want to do it and did it anyway, and they weren't happy. Like, come on, it's just you can push it for a while. And I grew up with a lot of athletes in Eastern Bloc. Then people were working hard, but they could care less about what they wanted to do gymnastics, but there was other motivations. But in the end, in the long term, in dealing with a lot of my female athlete friends from all different sports, it was their determination that wanted them to get to the next level. And it's innate in people, or you'll see it, but you have to listen to your kid. If they say, I don't really want to do it, don't push them. They might do it later. They'll see. And they have to do the work, right? Here's the thing. If you signed up and they're new to a sport, you sign up for a season of ice hockey or you sign up for a season of judo or something like that. They should finish out the season. You sign them up for like a semester of this. They should finish that and then they can make a decision. So there is something very important in I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do swimming, I want to do swimming. And then they get in the pool and they're like, I don't want to do swimming. Well, you sign up for a semester, finish your semester, and then you can move on to something because I am a fan of kids learning different skills in different sports. And there are then some sports like gymnastics, like swimming, actually, where it takes a lot when you're young and you have to focus on one. But the thing about that is that you still have to have variety, and kids should learn how to do certain things. Kids should learn how to swim. Kids should do gymnastics, martial arts. I have a feeling about these things. Learn how to run, do some track, because these things are things that you'll be able to use when you're older, right? So there's certain like skills. Learning to skate. I know, maybe you're not from a cold weather place, but it is super fun for my kids. They did a little hockey program. Funniest thing, but it taught them how to ice skate. So when they went on school trips, they were zipping around the ice rink. So I'm a big proponent in learning lifelong skills you can do when you're older. But if your child is coming to you and they either are very talented and they want to do more, you try to see what it is. But you got to talk to the coaches. It's a combination. Kids not going to train themselves. I mean, unless they're running by themselves. But in most instances, it has to have a coach, and they can see that one because you just parents look at kids differently. It's like asking a teacher whether a kid should move up to a certain level. They know if they're teaching them math and they're not getting this equation, they're not ready for the next level, and they'll let you know.